How's everybody out there? It's day 296 of 365 days towards racial change. I'm Thomas Nyback. We're here talking about black issues, how black, those with black skin or non-white skin, in a lot of cases, figure into the American landscape, especially socially and economically. Today I'm going to get into a subject I've been flirting with. Oh, we have a lot of material. Well, we got late 1400s, mid 1500s to the present, 2020, to talk about um, civil rights violations. Um, a lot of even good initiatives by America towards blacks after blacks are used, exploited, and all that then rolls out. As I'm watching one of these presidential candidates, and it's the classic, white process in America. Suck up all the resources, become a billionaire, have gain, and then roll out this political agenda package that that's so symbolic and is not. It's not about having people who are financially uh, below yourself with you. So his thing is health care. It's not about um, economic education. It's not about forwarding an agenda to put the tools in the hands of people that brought him to such a high economic place, right? It's healthcare and longevity, good health is great to have. You realize um, certain insecurities um, boil up to the surface when an injury is present. I'm still a blue collar worker, right? And I don't play sports or anything because if I get injured, it's going to threaten my means of sustenance, and that's only one aspect. I'm dealing with some mental issues with my anger. So this uh, candidate, looks so altruistic. Um, he's going in with his big shovel, supported by racism, ancient agendas in America, and is secure. He probably has so many um, financial products like working for him. You can get to a place where you own property or your investments are returning high or some things like that, endowments and trusts and things like that, and maybe do minor consulting and stuff, probably on boards and things. The point is, um, he makes money in his sleep. He's arrived at that kind of space in a capitalist society. That's how it works. And he so yeah, he's got time to spend billions on ads and tell us about his altruism and all that. Um, that give us tokens and symbols. Oh, that's in some ways are necessary. But I'm gonna. You got to give me some means, open some doors, teach me how to do that. What's his investment in education and stuff? Not these welfare outreach programs that in a way reinforce America's issue with color, right? I can't make it. Some of the reason is because of my skin color. Therefore I need a welfare and I need uh, somebody, a rich person, to lobby Congress and all this stuff. And it's just a real mess. That's in general. The experience of the power group, and right to be black, especially, you got to be able to handle the ball, sing, dance, and people love it. Another couple days, we're going to be talking about black entertainment and the way it's been appropriated, exploited here in America, and how blacks we've left all kinds of money on the table, and whites who know how to uh, take that have ran with it. That's doing this project has really steered me away from putting my creativity out in the world until I'm sure that I glean all of the um, resources from that. I've been to seminars and stuff, and there's a lot of creative ways. People who are just business minded, who know how to exploit and really own things, and have that whole process, service, or product just be used in the market to fill their pockets. Black people got to get with that. And the problem is, black people, even the ones of us, and I wasn't always like this, who are responsible, working, and stuff like that, then, we've got to, um, where's the time to learn and practice this kind of stuff? And, well, I think across the board, if you look at the statistics, right? You got black people. It takes black people longer because we're navigating so much more things that are not even an issue or never an issue in the lives of our white counterparts, brothers and sisters. So that's the issue. You know, Black people need to come to that place where they can get their children shielded and doing well. I'm looking this guy, young black man. I think it's the Spargo clothing, and I've only seen the ad on CNN, and that's good. And he's being exposed to a lot of stuff. I don't want to see him later on in court having roofied women and stuff, gotten all into all kinds of drama later in his life. Right now, he's a shining light, and you see what happens when you get that young black mind and nurture it and um, shelter it to some degree, because there's a lot of influence that would love to um, exploit his innocence still at this age. He's, maybe he's not been fully exposed to some of the world's evils and influences, which is good. Keep him as clean and straight as long as possible, so that when these uh, life's negative influences come at him, and they will, um, then he'll be in a better, stronger space to resist some of those temptations that could put a bad mark on black people, himself, and you know, things to follow him around. So, but that's the kind of thing, right? We need to normalize that in black life, right? We don't want gangs and drug dealers and all this foolishness, right? All of those things, all of the any black dysfunction that is right, like against the law and stuff. I mean, we already serve too many of us on plantations. Attrition is eating away at our numbers and a lot of stuff. And like, but we need to understand that serves the power group. I mean, they privatized jails. They're counting on a certain number of us smoking crack, getting into all kinds of garbage and foolishness. Right, that's part of it. And this is a relevant conversation because even in 2020, we're looking, we're still suffering from the aspects of slavery and Jim Crow. I had a person write on here to me like, slavery is over. What am I talking about? And I'm like, I don't see slavery ending in any way, shape, or form. We still go to plantations. A few hours after I finish this piece here, I got to go work on a plantation for a couple hours. Right? I'm not self-determining my life. I don't get out in the day and mess around. And I admit we got to participate in the infrastructure of our community to some degree, but this is exploitation at a phenomenal degree. Think about how much we pay for housing and stuff. I mean, tell you what, if you don't own your own house, I'm talking about you burned the deed, and that's your land. You just pay taxes, and maybe that land's drawing income. You're a slave. You've not arrived yet in America's ideal and America's potential, like most of the power group does. Power group owns their land, rents their land, and configures their finances so that the renter pays the mortgage, taxes, and all that. Now then you're in a position to say that at least you're not a slave, and that you're not under um, control, that you self-determine your life. Until then, it's a long road to hoe, and I'm not there myself. I mean, so get a grip. If you set your alarm because you have to, or else you sleep on the street and starve, or go to a homeless shelter, then you have not arrived at the idea of the American dream and all this stuff. If you rent your living space, you are still a slave. And that's every color of the rainbow. I'm inspired to do this work by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. Read 3 of his works. And while we're not going to get into them today, we're going to be getting back into Dr. Anderson's ideas as our 365 days concludes. It's a Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. An excellent book to really get the conversation going. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com and here on YouTube, all over the internet. Behind me, you see the hashtag #us2 symbol where Black women are coming together and having a conversation, um, supporting one another, having their community. Very important. Lot of there are some issues along the sex lines in the world. Some of those issues are exacerbated in Black lives. If we've been paying attention, especially through our Uncle Tom's Cabin journey, how the white folks uh, were just, it was, the slave life. It wasn't just an issue of labor, but it's in the marriage bed that you find the whites infiltrating the family, health care, uh, you know, everything. Slavery is so much more than giving a man or woman a hard time in the field. It's the white folks infiltrated everything, even to becoming in between the sacred union of man and wife for the slave. It's total holistic. So, and maybe I'll talk about some of my thoughts, how this influences the overall mindset of black women and black women and black men, and how it may not be as prevalent today, but how it's still manifest in relationships between black men and black women. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a black Facebook experience. If you got an entrepreneurial mind and you're ready to run with the business as a black person, check out Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Black Business School. There's a lot of places. It's the internet. If you can't find your flavor, then do what I did. Just start your own. Just start talking to the camera. You got plenty of devices. They're a dime a dozen nowadays. Easy to upload. You got plenty Vimeo, YouTube, whatever you want to place this stuff. And we just finished Uncle Tom's Cabin. I'm going to keep plugging this book. This has become a textbook. As soon as I start having kids, along probably with the Bible, I want to make sure this is a part of their experience and learning, so that racism in America can be better positioned on their radar, so that they can be in a better position to resist it or make proper adjustments in their favor. That racism wasn't talked about, a part of my family's conversation. Interesting, most of my early exposure to racism and the issue with the color of my skin came from a Jewish man in high school. Those were my first sobering conversations, although I was smoking as much weed as I could get my hands on, and I was in high school, so it didn't stick. And he was vague. But now, upon reflection, I know like he cared and he was trying to reach out to me. All right, anyway, in these last few minutes, I want to talk about something I've been wanting to get to for a while, but I've let it sit. It's been sitting, I don't know, about, at least 6 months, 6, 7 months, uh, because I mean, I'm always scratching stuff on paper. One day, whenever I die, if my thought is important and valuable in the world, wise people will come in and really be meticulous in how they handle. Cause I got stuff written in little notes and thoughts all over the place that I believe are valuable. A little biased that way. But I've been wanting to talk about King Kong, believe it or not, for a long time. But I wanted to do King Kong justice. If you followed me here on day 296, then you probably already know in what direction we're going to take the conversation concerning King Kong. But there's a few things you haven't thought about as King Kong correlates to racism in the United States. The movie made in 1933. Ironically, it's an adaptation from Chinese myth from the 16th century. Right, the 1500s is when slavery was starting to get rolling along in America. If even if you are kind of a history enthusiast, which I'm not, but I find a lot of interesting correlations between time and events in this various spaces as slavery was going on in America. One of the greatest thinkers in the world ever. If you're going to engage in Western philosophical thought and study, then you have to run into a man called Immanuel Kant, and his heyday was the 1790s. Well, you look what was going on in America, right? There's a guy named John Smith, Scottish kind of an economic philosophical guy who wrote The Wealth of Nations, right? You look at what's going on in his time frame and slavery in America, and he mentions slavery in his book. So it's quite the thing that some kind of some philosophers call it the Geist or whatever, wraps itself around the planet, where it's no coincidence that some interesting things were going on. King Kong, who knows, this big gorilla on an island. I think the last iteration, I've stopped watching the movie because it's the most racist movie. A lot of movies are just so racist, I don't even watch anymore because Hollywood is continuing the argument that the darker the skin color, the more expendable you are, right? Black people get killed. You look at the end of a movie, um, there's white people left standing, right? It's the white man getting a pretty white woman at the end of the movie, right? I'm watching one of the X-Men movies, right? The black man, he adapts to survive. I mean, what a cliche about black lives, right? At the end of the movie, there are no black people, but there's a beast, right? The colored characters are alien, more alien and disfigured, where the white characters are more bipedal humans. You know what I mean? Right? So I critique I wouldn't have any fun. You don't want to take me to the movies. You wouldn't have any fun. King Kong, big gorilla. At least in the 1933 version, in which most of the versions have this same plot. The white folks either go to this island in 1933. They got lost in the 70s. They were looking for gas. Remember, we had the fuel crisis, so they linked all that together. And there's been various iterations after that. Go to the island. They don't like the society's way of peace. They offer up a woman probably every year as a sacrifice. It's barbaric and stuff like that. Um, but it's an issue because if you look at what's going on today, the United States, um, injecting itself, just doing its white man power thing all over the world because our democracy is so right. I mean, this whole project has showed me that America's hands are so dirty and have never gotten clean. They've never been clean, if you follow my thought. Uh, so they go to King Kong, dangle a little blonde white girl. So here's more of this, um, the stereotype of this insatiable appetite black men have for white women, which was not an original narrative, as we found out in Harriet Beecher Stowe's book. That actual relationship was very platonic and innocent and safe and all that. America twisted it in its own way. We've had a conversation about that before. And they take the creature back home, right? After doing violence, they kidnap the big black creature, take him home, and they want to do parades and put him on display and make money and exploit him and stuff. Oh well, all the big gorilla rebels, tears up the city and all this stuff, and in the end, they assassinate the creature, right? I mean, and that is, I mean, isn't that the exact dynamic that goes on in America? You go and you mess around, um, and when there's a reaction to um, to America, right, led by white folks, then there's an uprising, uproar, and America responds with all of its power, weight, and might. Um, we got to pay attention, right? King Kong is it's the in the brief little hour and a half, 2 hours on our television set, well, we see the American paradigm on the earth, right? And it's not changed much since its inception. You know, go get this expendable folks, bring them over here, uh, do everything. If we can't, if we just can't do anything, let's throw our hands up, kill them off or whatever, and just keep trucking along. We got what we needed from them. Um, America needs to be careful. I believe a kind of some comeuppance is on deck for America in this regards. You know, what we're doing today, January 2020, being preemptive. Problem is, like now, I've become highly suspicious of my country. I don't know what they're telling. You know, I watched uh, Colin Powell with his PowerPoints and diagrams tell the world that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and uh, had spaces, and he was very um, detailed about trucks that had to circle these buildings to keep um, the contagion from getting out. Very elaborate. And I was like, wow, no way. Okay, wow. And we didn't find that. We found maybe a cache here and there, right? But Iraq wasn't pumping out weapons of mass destruction that needed to be, right? All right, and that this president has just pulled the trigger. I've been hinting at my view lately about the antiquity of the Constitution, and it's interesting. We've got people in the Senate talking about changing the rules um, to make processes happen faster and stuff. They're saying that we're relying on a document that's obsolete, that maybe has run its course. I haven't interjected here. It won't be a primary focus of our time here, but words about a central bank. And you need to read a book by a man named Griffin called, oh man, it just slipped my mind. Uh, oh well, hopefully it'll come back to me before we finish here. We're out of time. Um, but America just has a hypocrisy with its world affairs, and you really see it come out in its international relationships. We got domestic issues with drugs. We refuse to clean house, and um, with everything, and we're just not being responsible with the world, and the world is going to be like, United States, we're just going to have to let you, because you're being too, we're not in the loop, you're just acting autonomously, and you don't let others act in the same way, you prevent it. So where is our truth? Where does it come from? If you read a book by George Orwell, 1984, I mean, we're really getting there, right? About surveillance, propaganda, what is truth, things like that. America's not perfect, and King Kong is a perfect illustration of especially America's attitude toward black people, those with black skin. But wasn't a white albino gorilla, right? The gorilla was giant, dangerous, black, and all these things that I deal with when I'm on the public transportation, on the train, right? So America, man, it looked so good for so long, but inside your own borders, you America had kidnapping, you castrated, if not physically, which you did perform on men, but castrating as far as undermining of the power of an individual, male and female. You appropriated life, right? Those are some of the things we hopefully we came away from in our Uncle Tom's Cabin study, and our illustration of King Kong, and what you watch on TV, wherever you're getting your entertainment. Watch how black people are portrayed in relation to the white community in which they are immersed. I am Thomas Nyback. I'm way over this time, but thanks for hanging out with me on day 296 of 365 days towards racial change. We'll see you next time.